Salve, salve, Maestro here. And today we're going to talk about the new Victoria Free Dev Diary, which is focused on diplomatic treaties. We already saw a little bit about it in later Dev Diaries, but this is going to be a focused one. First of all, I want to talk about something that happened today or yesterday, but it was in a span of 1 day time, which is this thing here. The project Caesar will be announced. Okay. I said that I would do some Project Caesar Dev Diaries, some Tinto talks, but I was very busy in the last weeks and I was waiting for them to end the Catholic Church Arch of Berries because since I'm starting in the middle of it, I didn't want to start in the middle of a focus feature. But still, they announced it before it started. It's announced to be set on a week from now, if I'm not mistaken. 1 week or 6 days. And to comment only one more thing about it is that everyone knew it. It was no one's mistake. But now we know for sure that it is U5 because you can see at the bottom left of the screen there is the Europa Universalis YouTube channel. I will change a little bit the screen for you to see it. I think it's already enough. You can clearly see that it's only posted on Europa Universalis YouTube channel, and as such, it is U5 indeed. With that being said, let's jump into our Victoria Freedom Diary. And only from this image, I can already see this beautiful UI here about some kind of agreement between Brazil and Bolivia. So maybe they will do a overall over the diplomatic, or maybe this is about war goals and how to peace out from war and something like that. But let's see. Hello, Victorian. My name is Alex. He's a programmer, and we're going to be looking at diplomatic treaties, arriving with 3.1.9. Before we begin, though, I should mention that today is a public holiday. Shout out to IG Trade Unions Works Day for us here in Sweden and almost every place in the world. This diary was, as usual, written ahead of time. Okay, and he's saying that he will not answer a lot of the questions until Monday. Okay. With all that said, I should also remember you that this is working part. Now let's see this GIF here, which is British and French deliberation, the drafted treaty, and it jumps off this screen. And I need to say something. This UI here, it's gorgeous. Like, I think that's probably this is the most beautiful mechanic UI in Victoria 3 right now. And I will even go further to say that this is probably one of the most beautiful paradox UI because this is amazing. Just look at this. How it is simple, is direct, is practical, and it's still beautiful. Diplomatic treaties. As part of the changes to the world market, we describe it in Dev Diary 143, and with trade routes as you know them going away, we wanted to introduce you a new mechanic that lets you actively establish pointed strategic ways of elevating your industries or exploiting others through trade. We wanted more ways for you to peacefully but aggressively compete against your rivals and establish your dominance across the globe. Initially, this was drafted to be relatively simple tit for that deal. You give me grain, I'll give you coal. But we of course got thinking, and particularly in the context of how often the community asks for more in-depth diplomacy, we thought, what if we went a step or two or 20 further and made the full-blown system treaties where you can weight a bunch of different types of things against each other? Maybe to get purchased to agree with an alliance, you can sweeten the deal by promising to give them a certain amount of weapons every week. Or maybe you can say you pay off Hades' debt in exchange for them to granting your investment rights. And well, that's what we did. Diplomatic treaties are a new way for you to interact with other countries diplomatically. They are, in a way, a natural extension of what the diplomatic actions and pacts currently in game do. But instead of just having you propose one thing at a time in a vacuum, you can combine them and have a whole context of what you're going to be available and ready together. So it seems that they are moving all the diplomatic part of the game to these treaties. So everything that we do diplomatically is from treaties, which I prefer for sure. Although there are some actions that doesn't make sense, like improving relations or expelling diplomats are one-way actions, so it doesn't need a treaty, right? So maybe they're keeping these one-way diplomatic actions in diplomatic actions, and all the two-way actions are gonna be through treaties. And in this treaty here, we already can see that they are moving some goods to receive acre. Okay, so this is one of the historical treaties that probably we're gonna have. And this seems that's gonna be how the government can create trade route. So it's gonna be through treaties. So Brazil is gonna be sending 5 models to Bolivia. So probably the Brazilian state will create a buy order in the Brazilian market and then will pay for these models. And after it, it's going to create a sell order on the Bolivian market, which the Bolivian state will get the profit from this. Or maybe even the Brazilian government itself is going to get the profits of this trade. But okay, it's a fairly new system. In short, the way it works is like this. You decide you want to treaty with another country, so you open the 3D draft panel. You then select what articles you want them to have, both offer and request. When you are happy, you send the proposal to the other country. They can then look at what you propose and either accept or reject, of course, but they can also to negotiate further. So pretty normal, but still very cool. Negotiating further lets them tweak the proposal however they want, and then send it back to you. This is then repeated until either of you agree on a treaty or you decided to just end the process. So you, it's me, the player, or you, both of sides, because I can clearly see like infinite negotiations between the player and the AI. Assuming you sign the treaty, it's now attacked and remains so until either side withdraw from it. A big crux on a system like this is, of course, how the AI handles it. Exactly. We want to make sure that you can just scam the AI, which will, of course, be a way to do that, but we also want you to feel you're drafting clever treaties and making use of any advantage you might have. In particular, we also want to feed into the fantasy of you being able to draft clearly unequal treaties with other countries, because maybe you are able to remind them that you have big boats and beyond the next door. These are all goals we have in mind while working on the balancing of this feature. So, my personal opinion on that is that it's okay to have some exploitable mechanic in game because most of the time you're gonna know that you are cheating, right? The AI, that you're gonna be exploiting the AI. So it's up to the player to decide if you want to cheese it and exploit the AI as much as you want. Always, it's gonna get boring sometime. So I prefer to give this freedom for the player instead of just removing this feature at all, because there are gonna be some players that just doesn't want to be bothered about thinking on how exploit and just want to play the game and want something more. So it's still a good decision to just keep it on the game instead of removing it, because some people probably will exploit it on their single game. And this whole paragraph is saying that multilateral treaties is not possible, which is fair. It seems very difficult to code it and program the AI and how it's going to be done. So it's okay. And so basically, articles are the way you're going to navigate through the treaties, where each thing you add to the treaty is an article. Some of them are normal, some of them depend on the input, like moving some goods or paying some money. Some of them are mutual, some of them are directional. Like there's nothing too special about it. We can barely think of how this is going to be done. And we can see here that they changed the UI to tariff. It's not a slider as they thought about it, but they created the icons for it. So probably it's not gonna be some slider as people thought and asked it for. And here you say that some or even most of the diplomatic actions have been moved to treaties, but not all of them, like improving relations or defiring rivalry. And here you say that they're gonna make a little rework over treaty ports because it needs to be through a treaty, which makes sense, but it's not a consequence of geography. So maybe there won't be like a physical province of Portugal inside thing. They are changing it or they're keeping it, but you only can do a treaty port through a treaty without having the ability to enforce it through war. They're gonna still have like Macau or Hong Kong, or this is gonna be just on a superficial level instead of giving the province for Portugal for Great Britain. And they don't go very further on that, but they just explain that transit right is also a treaty, which for me is very obvious, but okay, it's related to world market access. So Switzerland maybe have a transit right with France and then it can connect itself to the world market. Now, about ending a treaty ends when either side withdraw from the treaty. Easy. Of course, if you gave away Angola in exchange for Spain transferring you a certain amount of money every week, you want to make sure that they actually follow through and you don't get scammed. This is where binding periods come in. Okay, so they're not gonna be able to break a treaty because, like, let's say I'm Spain and I received an Angola from Portugal and I'm paying some money to Portugal. But for some reason, Great Britain breaks the alliance with Portugal and now they are very weak. So if I'm Spain, I pretty much would wanted to break the treaty and like declare war over Portugal with a CB like treaty cancellation. Would make much more sense to do it, right? Like we need to read all Dev Diary, but still it's strange to see that we can't technically break the treaty, like how a truce work in Victoria Free. So when signing a treaty, you also define for how long the treaty will be binded. 5, 10, 15, maybe 99 years, let's see. When the binding duration for the treaty lapses, either side can end the treaty at any point without consequence. So the treaty can keep on. I can sign a treaty in 1836 and then it ends in 1841, but I keep the treaty up until the 900s because both sides would like this treaty. They're still looking for a few alternatives, maybe a slider, but since they didn't change it here on tariffs, maybe it will just be this binding period here. Okay, so you can still end the treaty before the binding period, but then you be in breach of the treaty and subject to hefty penalties depending on the articles present in the treaty. Okay, then, but it doesn't seem like there is gonna be a CB for treaty cancellation, which is strange. Maybe they are gonna do it by renegotiation. So like if I am Spain and now Portugal has no longer an alliance with Great Britain, me as a Spain can enforce a new treaty because I have a very bigger army than them right now. Talking about renegotiation. If you made some poor choices and the treaty is really not good for you, you can attempt to renegotiate the treaty instead of just withdrawing from it. To do so, you select what treaty you want to renegotiate and simply click on the button. This will bring you to a flow similar to the original drafting panel, but instead of having a blank slate, the existing articles will be baseline. From there, you can add or remove articles, change inputs, or even change the binding period. When you're happy, you send the proposal, and as usual, the other side can reject or renegotiate further. Now I'm just checking this signature here and I don't know if it has some meaning like this is written like New Granada or it's the New Granada leader, but it would be cool to see like historical characters have historical signatures. So if I'm playing with Great Britain and Victoria is my leader, it would be cool to see her historical signature here, or like Abraham Lincoln's historical signature, or Otto von Bismarck signature. Now talking about if you not fulfill some of the articles. So say you're playing as a Belgian and you need paper but don't feel like actually making it yourself. You could set up a treaty where you give the Netherlands some of your super in exchange they give you some paper. They agree, but for some reason, they lost the paper production, let's say, and they no longer can give me paper. In such case, the Netherlands will be considered the non-fulfillment of their part of the treaty. When it happens, generally one of two things will happen depending on what article is not being fulfilled. If it's a serious breach, like not answering the call of an alliance, this will break the whole treaty, and the part at fault will receive the penalties tied to an early withdrawal if the treaty is still binding. For less serious breaches, though, like with the. So, another thing that's kind of strange is that alliances have binding because technically speaking, and probably that's why they say here that they want to change the where is it here? They say they are looking for a few alternative because technically an alliance should be forever. Like there should be no binding to an alliance. But okay, for less serious breaches though, like with the example above, what happened is that the other side of the treaty will be inactive until the breach is addressed. If there are any other articles on Belgium side, those are also inactive for as long as the other side is non-fulfillment. The side that isn't fulfilling one of their actions is stay active though. So if Netherlands is also giving some money to Belgium, if they do not give the paper, they will not receive the sulfur, but they will be still paying the Belgians because of the treaty. So interesting. Obligations. As usual, you can call in obligations to make a country more likely to accept a treaty you propose. When it comes to how you get those obligations, we are making some changes though. Broadly speaking, you will be able to say you consider a certain treaty as essentially a favor to the other side. This will reduce their acceptance of the treaty, but in turn, if the binding period of the treaty lapses and everyone fulfills a part, it will grant you an obligation. And here we have a historical treaty, the Tratado de Petrópolis, between Brazil and probably New Granada. So I think it's the treaty where Brazil bought some area of the Amazon from New Granada. And they say here how it's gonna be able to modding. This seems very interesting, but I know that not everyone is interested on that. So I would just jump in. And talking about specifically charters of commerce, there are gonna be special treaties as no tariffs on goods. The country will not allowed to set tariffs on a specific input good when trading with the world market. And this is an abstraction of the world market that it doesn't make sense, but I can still see why they've done it. Because it would be cool if the country was not allowed to set tariffs on my goods. Because I don't care about the other one's good. I only care about my own good. But with the abstraction of the world market, there's gonna be no way of doing it. It would be cool to be a selection of who they can or cannot put tariffs on, but this would be impossible because of performance issues, right? And since there is no tariffs, there is no subventions too. You can prohibit trade with the old market. So the country is not allowed to trade in specific input good with world market. So basically, the country cannot sell and buy this good, which I can do it with my subjects, let's say. So if I really lack some grain, I can then forbid my subjects to trade it with the Europe market because I want the grain to be in my own market. Law commitment, you can enforce a law. Very good. Non-colonization agreement, they already said about it. And grant monopoly to foreign country. So not only I will be able to make a monopoly on my own country, I can enforce this on others. Very interesting mechanic of monopoly. Like I already can see how exploitable this update will be, not only through trade, through treaties, through monopolies, but like this is gonna be an interesting June, right? It is coming out on June, and like the developers will have a lot of time to make some fixes and twists in order to make the game more balanced. I'm for sure. And just one more thing, you can enforce some articles in war. So basically, this is gonna be how you're gonna declare the treaty part that I said before. So you're gonna enforce it on China, let's say, through this special CB right here. But the question still remains if we're gonna have a physical place or it's gonna just be an agreement. And now how it's gonna work this? Because let's say that Prussia and France already have a agreement, and now they managed to enforce some articles on each other. So after the Biden period, the treaties that were enforced through war are gonna expire or they're gonna continue, and then the other side will need to renegotiate in order to remove them. Because, like, let's say that this agreement was beneficial for both France and Prussia, and like money transfer was enforced on Prussia. Now, Prussia doesn't want to pay any more money to the French, but still want to keep the treaty. It is not going to cancel everything out, but it's very much likely that they are not going to be able to cancel this money transfer peacefully. So it needs to have a ticking time and it immediately is expired, right? That's what I think make more sense. And that's it for today. We're coming back at May 5th with the new Dev Diary and take a look at the name of the Dev Diary, which is Companies and Executive. So I think that they're gonna add a character system for capitalists. So maybe they're gonna have a way that a character that's owner of a company can influence politics, which is very welcome. I already thought about it, and I think that they should expand this idea on like some special scientists, let's say like Charles Darwin, Marie Curie, Faraday, Albert Einstein, you name it. Like as it has a system for political agitators, there should be a system for executives and company owners, and there should be a system for researchers and scientists, and on and on and on. So very cool. Let's wait to see what they got for us. And as he said here, it is a public holiday. Another shout out to trade unions, and he did not answer a lot of the questions. So I will just end the video by here. I hope you like, and I helped you to understand a little bit more on this dead diary and to share my ideas. Comment, like, subscribe, and I see you next time.